In the silent twilight of a high-rise building where luxury coexisted with loneliness, two wounded souls crossed paths unexpectedly. She, a woman who had learned to disappear between night shifts and simple packed lunches, carried an unnamed hope in her tired eyes. He, a man who had built an empire on the ruins of his own heart, avoided feeling anything that might remind him he was still alive. It was on an ordinary night, one of those that felt like every other, that fate decided it was time for two strangers to stop running, because some encounters don't ask for permission. Some glances pierce through glass, walls, and fears. And some loves are born precisely where no one expected them, in the shared silence between two people who thought they no longer fit anywhere. This is the story of Clara and Lucas, of solitary dinners that turned into confidences, of distances that transformed into closeness, of wounds that found healing in each other, and of a love that, though fragile, decided to exist against all odds. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. Clara adjusted her lunchbox on the narrow table by the window. The one nobody else wanted because it was out of the way. That was precisely why she'd chosen it. The view from the 23rd floor was vast and quiet. And there, with the city twinkling below as if breathing for her, she could feel something akin to peace. The old portable radio crackled softly beside her, playing an old tune she didn't know by heart, but hummed along to anyway. There was something comforting about the ritual. The chosen solitude, the silence that demanded nothing, the feeling that for a few minutes the world left her alone. She didn't notice when he stopped in the hallway. Lucas Davenport walked through that floor every night after endless meetings, searching for a place where he could breathe without someone expecting an answer from him. But that night, something made him hesitate before moving on. The soft light spilling from the adjacent room, the muffled sound of a woman's voice humming, and, as he approached without making a sound, the image of her. Clara was with her back to him, her hair pulled up haphazardly, her shoulders slightly slumped, as if carrying the weight of many nights like this one. There was a worn serenity in the way she held her fork, the distant look in her eyes as she gazed at the city outside, as if she were there and at the same time very far away. Lucas couldn't say why he stood there just watching, perhaps because it had been a long time since he'd seen someone so present, so human, so real. It was then that she turned her face and found him there, standing in the hallway's dim light. Her eyes widened for a moment, and Clara gripped her fork tighter, as if caught doing something forbidden. "Sorry," she said softly, almost embarrassed. I didn't know anyone else was here." Lucas blinked, as if coming back to himself. "No, my apologies. I didn't mean to startle you." She offered a shy smile, the kind that barely reaches the eyes, and lowered her gaze back to her lunchbox. "It's okay. I was just finishing up anyway." He should have left. He should have kept walking, as he did every night. But something, perhaps the gentle way she breathed, perhaps the way she seemed to carry a sadness similar to his own, made him take another step. "Do you eat here often?" he asked, not quite understanding why he was asking. Clara looked up again, surprised. "Almost always. It's quiet, and the view is nice." Lucas glanced out the window, as if seeing it for the first time. "It is," he agreed, his voice softer than he intended. "It's nice." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people feel something similar, but neither knows quite what to do with it. Clara stirred her food, not really eating. "Do you work here?" she ventured, her voice hesitant. He hesitated too, but then nodded. "I do. And you?" "Cleaning, night shift." Lucas felt a tightness in his chest. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. As if somehow he knew exactly what it was like to carry the burden of a life that offered no choices. "Must be tiring," he said. Without much thought, Clara shrugged, but the smile she managed was sad. "You get used to it." He didn't reply, but something in those words echoed within him in a way that hurt. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe to receive emotional stories every day. They stood there for a few more minutes, exchanging short phrases, glances that said more than words. And when Clara finally stood up to leave, Lucas felt a strange sensation in his chest, as if he were letting go of something he hadn't even known he was looking for. "Good night," she said before disappearing down the corridor. "Good night," he replied, even though he knew she could no longer hear him. And when the silence returned, Lucas realized that, for the first time in 3 years, he didn't want to be alone. Clara had always known that life didn't ask permission before it hurt. She'd learned that early on, when her older brother left without a word, leaving behind only the scent of coffee he used to make in the early hours. She'd learned it again when her mother got sick, and days turned into an endless succession of doctor's appointments, expensive medications, and forced smiles that said everything will be okay, even when they knew it wouldn't. She was 21 when she realized she'd never have the chance to be truly young, that her dreams would have to wait, that the world wouldn't stop to ask if she was ready. At 29, she had learned to live with it. She worked 3 different shifts throughout the week, cleaning offices, bathrooms, empty corridors of buildings that never slept. She liked the quiet of the night, the absence of scrutiny, the feeling that there no one expected anything from her beyond what she already gave. But there were nights when the loneliness weighed heavier than the exhaustion. Nights when she'd find herself staring out the window, imagining what it would be like to have someone waiting for her at home, someone who asked how her day was, someone who hugged her for no reason. But Clara had learned not to expect that, because waiting hurt more than accepting. Lucas Davenport grew up surrounded by everything except affection. Heir to a hotel empire that spanned 3 continents, he'd learned early on that his life wasn't his own. It belonged to meetings, contracts, decisions affecting thousands. It belonged to calculated smiles, firm handshakes, words that said exactly what needed to be said and nothing more. He always knew that. But there was a time when he believed it could be different. He met Eleanor at 28. At a charity gala where she was laughing too loudly and dancing without a care who was watching. She was everything he wasn't: light, spontaneous, alive. And for 3 years, Lucas allowed himself to believe he could have that he could be happy, until the night she didn't come home. The accident was quick, painless, the doctors said, as if that made a difference. Lucas shut down after that, not by choice, but by instinct, as if the only way to survive was to feel nothing at all. He worked more, slept less, avoided anything that might remind him that, once upon a time, he was capable of love. And it worked, until the night he saw Clara dining alone and something inside him cracked. The next night he went back. He hadn't planned it, he hadn't thought about it. He just found himself walking down the same hallway at the same time, expecting to find her there. And she was. Same table, same takeout container, same old radio playing softly. But this time, when she looked up and saw him, she didn't seem surprised. "You came back," she said, and there was something almost shy in her voice. Lucas hesitated at the entrance to the room. Yeah. Can I come in?" Clara nodded, and he sat in the chair beside her, not quite knowing what to say. The silence returned, but it was different now, more comfortable, as if they'd both moved past the phase where every second needed filling with words. "Do you always eat alone?" Lucas asked after a while. Clara offered a small smile, but didn't answer immediately. She poked at her food, thoughtful. "I prefer it. It's easier. Easier than..." She looked up at him, and Lucas saw a sadness there so profound it almost hurt. than needing someone. He didn't know what to say because he understood. He understood too much. And you? Clara asked, shifting the focus. Why are you here? Lucas took a deep breath. Because downstairs, there are too many people waiting for me to be someone I no longer know how to be. Clara held his gaze for a second longer than she should have, and Lucas felt something shift within his chest. I understand, she said softly, and he believed her. The following nights became a silent ritual. Lucas started showing up at the same time, and Clara stopped being surprised when she saw him. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Sometimes he'd bring a coffee and share it with her. Other times, they'd just sit there side by side watching the city breathe below. But the world around them wasn't made of comfortable silences. In the third week, Mariana, Clara's shift supervisor, pulled her aside at the start of her shift. Be careful, Clara, she said, her voice low but firm. People are talking. Clara frowned. Talking about what? Mariana glanced quickly around before continuing. That you've been having dinner with the owner. That maybe you're trying something. Clara's blood ran cold. That's not true. I know, but it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what it looks like. Clara felt her chest tighten. She knew how this worked. She knew that for some people, a woman like her couldn't be near a man like Lucas without there being ulterior motives. He just talks to me. That's all. Mariana sighed. I believe you. But there are people who won't, and I don't want you to get hurt because of it. That night, when Lucas appeared, Clara was different. Everything okay? He asked, sensing the tension. She hesitated, but finally nodded. Everything. But Lucas knew lies. He lived surrounded by them. Clara, people are talking, she cut in, her voice lower, about us, about this. Lucas felt his jaw clench. And what are they saying? That I'm trying something, that you shouldn't be here. He took a deep breath, trying to control the anger that was building inside him. Do you care what they think? Clara looked up at him, and there was pain in her eyes. I care about what this could do to my job, to my life. Lucas wanted to say that he would fix it, that no one would touch her, that he would ensure she was safe, but the words died in his throat, because he knew, in a way, this was his fault. In the following days, Lucas tried to keep his distance, not because he wanted to, but because he thought it was the right thing to do. Clara noticed, and it hurt more than she expected. It wasn't until he found her crying in the storage room 3 days later that he realized he couldn't stay away. Clara. She quickly wiped her face, trying to hide it. Sorry, I just needed a minute. Lucas approached slowly. What happened? She took a deep breath, trembling. My mom, she's worse, and I don't know what to do anymore. And it was there, in that dark, silent storage room, that Lucas did the only thing he knew how to do. He stayed by her side. No words, no promises, just present. The rain started without warning, as it often does on autumn nights. Clara was finishing up cleaning the 23rd floor when the storm broke, turning the city below into a blurry smear of lights and shadows. She paused by the window for a moment, watching the drops streak down the glass, and felt a tightness in her chest she couldn't name. Still here? Lucas's voice made her jump. He stood at the entrance to the room, hands in his pockets, his suit slightly rumpled. He looked tired, more human than usual. I was finishing up, Clara replied, clutching the cleaning cloth tighter than necessary. Lucas approached slowly, as if asking permission with every step. You're going home in this rain? Clara shrugged. I'll wait for it to let up a bit. He nodded and, without a word, sat in the chair by the window. The same one where he used to find her eating dinner. Clara hesitated, but eventually sat down too. The silence between them was different now. denser, as if there were too many things wanting to come out, but neither of them knew where to start. "Your mom," Lucas began, his voice low. "Is she any better?" Clara swallowed hard. "No, but we're managing." He nodded, his eyes fixed on the rain. "I'm sorry. Thank you." More silence, and then, without much thought, Lucas said, "I lost someone too." Clara turned her face to him, surprised. He didn't look back. He just continued, his voice lower, more fragile. "My fiancé, 3 years ago." Clara's heart ached. "Lucas, I didn't know." He gave a sad smile. "Nobody knows. Or rather, everyone knows. But nobody talks about it. It's easier that way." Clara didn't say anything, but she slowly reached out and placed her hand on his. Lucas looked at that small, calloused hand resting on his and felt something break inside him. "I thought I'd never feel anything again," he confessed, his voice almost a whisper. "I thought I had died with her." Clara squeezed his fingers lightly, as if to say she understood. "And now?" she asked softly. Lucas finally raised his eyes to meet hers. "Now, I don't know." Their eyes met, and Clara felt her breath catch. There was something there, something real, dangerous, inevitable. Lucas leaned in slightly, almost without realizing it, and Clara didn't pull away. The world outside continued to rain, but inside, time had stopped. As their lips almost touched, Clara closed her eyes, her heart pounding. But it was Lucas who pulled back. "Sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. I shouldn't have." Clara opened her eyes, confused, hurt. "Why?" He stood up, running his hands over his face. "Because you deserve more than this, more than me. Lucas, you don't understand, Clara. I can't feel this again and lose it all over." She stood up too, her chest tight. "Who says you'll lose it?" Lucas looked at her with a sadness so profound that Clara almost crumbled. "Because I always lose." And before she could answer, he left, leaving Clara alone, with the rain drumming against the glass and the bitter taste of a what-if that never happened. Clara requested a shift change the next morning, not because she wanted to, but because she didn't know how to keep running into Lucas every night, feeling that weight in her chest, that sense that something important had slipped through her fingers. Mariana approved the request without asking questions, but her look said she understood. "It'll be okay," she said, with a kindness that only made Clara want to cry more. But it wasn't. The following days were the hardest Clara had ever faced. Not because of the exhausting routine, nor because her mother was getting worse each week, but because of the absence of something she hadn't even known she needed. Because of his absence, Lucas noticed on the first night. He arrived on the 23rd floor at the usual time, but the room was empty. There was no lunchbox on the table, no radio playing, no Clara. He waited, 20 minutes, half an hour, but she didn't come. And Lucas understood. She had left, not the building, but him. He sat in the chair where he used to find her and stayed there looking at the city below, feeling a void he hadn't felt in 3 years. It was then that he realized how cowardly he had been, how much he had hurt the only person who, in a long time, had made him feel something other than pain. 2 weeks passed. Clara got used to the new shift. She arrived earlier, finished earlier, avoided the upper floors. She avoided any chance of running into him, but her heart didn't get used to it. Every night, when she lay down, she found herself thinking about what could have been. The almost kiss, the intertwined hands, the way he looked at her as if she were the only real thing in a world of pretenses. And every night, she cried in silence, wondering why it was always like this. Why, whenever she allowed herself to feel something, life always found a way to take it away. Lucas wasn't doing any better. He'd been working non-stop, packing his schedule with meetings, avoiding any quiet moments where his thoughts might drift to her. But it didn't work. Because at night, when everything else faded, it was her face that appeared. Her shy smile, her soft voice, the way she'd held his hand as if to say it would be okay, and he knew he'd messed it all up. It was on a rainy Thursday, 3 weeks later, that he saw her again. He was leaving a meeting when he spotted her in the 10th floor hallway, lugging a heavy bucket, her hair a mess, her face tired. She didn't see him at first, but when she did, she stopped. And for a second, the whole world stopped with her. "Clara," Lucas breathed, his voice rough. She swallowed hard. "Lucas." They stood there, frozen, not knowing what to say. Then Clara looked away and kept walking, and Lucas felt, for the first time, what it was to lose someone who was still alive. It was in the basement storage room that Lucas found her again. He wasn't looking, he hadn't planned it, but as he passed the slightly ajar door and saw the forgotten lunchbox on the shelf, he stopped. It was the same one Clara used every night, faded green with a sunflower sticker on the lid, and beside it a small, carefully folded note. Lucas picked up the paper with trembling hands. When he unfolded it, he read, "Tomorrow might be better." Just 4 words, written by hand in a shaky script, as if Clara had to convince herself of it every day. And it was there in that cold, silent storage room that Lucas finally understood. She wasn't trying to be strong. She was surviving, day by day, alone, and he had abandoned her. Clara was finishing her shift when she saw him standing in the doorway of the women's locker room. "Lucas," she said, confused, "what are you doing here?" He took a step forward, and she saw his eyes were red. "I found this," he said, holding out the note. Clara felt her face flush. You shouldn't have read that. I know, but I did, and Clara, I'm so sorry." She blinked, not understanding. "Sorry for what?" Lucas took a deep breath. "For running away, for hurting you, for being a coward." Clara felt her eyes sting. "Lucas, I was scared," he continued, his voice breaking. "Scared to feel, scared to lose, scared to be happy again." Tears streamed down her face, and now... Lucas moved closer slowly until he was just a few feet away. "Now I'm more afraid of living without you than I am of trying again." Clara sobbed, and Lucas cupped her face in his hands. "I don't know if it will work. I don't know if I can be what you deserve, but I want to try, if you'll let me." She closed her eyes, feeling his touch, the warmth, the truth in every word. "I'm scared too," she confessed, her voice trembling. "Then we'll be scared together." And this time, when he leaned in, Clara didn't pull away. The kiss was slow, hesitant, filled with everything they hadn't been able to say. And when they broke apart, their foreheads still touching, Clara whispered, "Tomorrow might be better." Lucas smiled. For the first time in a long time. It might be. The following months weren't easy. There were sideways glances, mean comments, people who didn't understand or didn't want to understand what was between them. But Clara and Lucas learned to ignore it. They learned that true love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It simply exists. Lucas started having dinner with her every night. Not on the 23rd floor, but in small, hidden restaurants around the city where they could just be themselves. He met Clara's mother. He held her hand while doctors delivered difficult news. He stayed by her side during those late nights when the fear was too much to bear alone. Clara, in turn, learned to trust. She learned that not everyone would leave, that not all happiness was temporary. She learned that sometimes love appears precisely when you least expect it. It was a December night, 6 months after their first kiss, when Lucas took her back to the 23rd floor. Clara frowned when she saw the table set near the window with lit candles and soft music playing in the background. "What's this?" she asked, laughing. Lucas smiled, pulling out a chair for her. "Our first real dinner." Clara sat, touched, and he sat beside her. "I wanted to thank you," Lucas said, taking her hand. "For what?" "For reminding me what it feels like to be alive." Clara squeezed his fingers, her eyes shining. "You did the same for me." They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at silly things, getting lost in each other's eyes, as if it were the first time. And when dessert arrived, Lucas stood up and held out his hand. "Dance with me," Clara laughed. "Here, here." She accepted, and they danced there, in the middle of that empty room, with the city lights twinkling below, and their hearts beating in rhythm. "I love you," Lucas whispered, his mouth close to her ear. Clara closed her eyes, feeling every word. "I love you too." And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the past, not the fear, not what people would say, just them, and the love that, against all odds, chose to exist. A year and a half later, Clara was still having dinner on the 23rd floor, but now Lucas was always by her side. Clara's mother had passed away 6 months prior, peacefully, surrounded by love. And though the pain was still there, Clara had learned to carry that loss with more lightness, because she was no longer alone. Lucas proposed to Clara on a July night, in the same place where it all began, and she said yes, through tears, laughing and crying at the same time. They were married in a small ceremony, with few guests, but full of love. And as they exchanged vows, Clara realized she had found what she had always been looking for, a place to belong. Not a physical place, but a place in someone's heart. Years later, after they had built a life together, Clara still kept the note she used to write to herself every night. Tomorrow might be better. But now she didn't need it anymore, because tomorrow was already good. And that's how two wounded hearts discovered that love, when it's true, always finds a way. And you, what did you think of this story? What was the moment that touched your heart the most? Leave your comments below and take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. That way you never miss our love stories.